Welcome to episode 7 of the Hit Your Target podcast, where we explore the moments, tools, and mindsets that empower people to thrive. Today's guest is someone who has truly mastered the art of inspiring transformation in others. Lisa Brice brings over 30 years of experience as an Equine Learning Specialist, Master NLP Trainer, and an international trainer and coach. Lisa's passion for unlocking human potential and creating impactful learning experiences shines in everything she does. From pioneering Equine Assisted Learning in the UK with her groundbreaking Horses for Courses programme, to delivering thought-provoking, results-driven training, Lisa has built an incredible reputation for empowering individuals, teams and organisations. Lisa was actually my coach when I trained in NLP and has been the inspiration behind my coaching journey. Her depth of knowledge and unique approach left such a lasting impression on me. I'm thrilled to have her on the podcast today. We're diving into some truly fascinating topics, including the neurological levels of change, a framework that helps us understand the layers of transformation, and the profound human need for connection. Get ready to hear Lisa's insights on how we create lasting change, not just for ourselves, but for the people we lead and the teams we work with. So grab a cup of tea or coffee, settle in, and let's jump into this incredible conversation with Lisa. Hey Lisa, thank you for joining me on the podcast today. And I'm super excited to talk to you because you have been the inspiration behind my entire journey of NLP. So for the listeners out there, you're just amazing at what you do. And to blend that with what you do with the horses as well, I just find it phenomenal. What I'm interested in is what's the target that you feel you've hit over your career, whether personally or professionally? What springs to mind for you?
Well, there's been a few. I think probably the thing that I'm most proud of was when I set up my Horses for Courses business, which was back in 2002 now. So quite a lot of years, 22 years. So yeah, I'm really happy to kind of share that journey and what kind of led to it, and tell you a little bit about how it's still an ongoing passion for me. So yeah,
definitely. And I'd love to know a bit more about that because I think for you setting that up at that time, like you say, it was quite a new thing, I imagine.
Yeah, I think there were 3 other companies in the UK that were doing it, and I didn't intend to set it up as a business. I'd found myself in Canada with my mother on a ranch with a barefoot farrier and a natural horseman. And I watched him work with the horses, and it was just, it literally blew my mind, because I'd been brought up and sort of British Horse Society riding instructor. I'd ridden since I was 2. I was, what I would call very traditional. I think I was very empathetic, but the British Horse Society has a way of teaching, and certainly the qualifications and the training that I did was, not alternative, I suppose. And then we were on this ranch in Canada, and I watched Lane work with these horses in a way that I'd just never seen before. It literally blew my mind. It was like, oh my goodness, how is he doing this? So he had them moving around a round pen, an enclosed sort of circular area, and then they were coming up and putting their foot on a tripod, and he was trimming their feet, and then they'd leave when they wanted to leave, and he'd move them around a bit, and they'd come up and put their foot on the tripod. And I literally watched him for 8 hours with my mouth open going, oh, I can't believe it. Like, how is he doing what he's doing? And that started a love affair with natural horsemanship and his form of what he called horse whispering. So I trained, was there for like 2 weeks, watched him, and he kind of let me have a bit of a go and a bit of a play. And then I went back the next year and did some more training with him, ended up buying a horse out in Canada, kept him in Canada, which is mad when you live in the UK. And then was flying back out and forth and training with Lane to learn this form of natural horsemanship, which he'd trained and learned from a number of different people, and then had kind of developed his own style. But primarily he was an associate of a horse whisperer called Chris Irwin that is still working magic round the world. He's an amazing horseman. And then in Canada, they used natural horsemanship and this form of communication to teach head teachers, rehabilitate prison offenders, use it in leadership development. And I was like, wow, never heard of that. And then I came home after one of my trips and went, I think I might do that. And so started to do a bit of research in the UK, and there wasn't really anyone else doing it. I had a look. I think I found like 3 people, but it was all very new and not really kind of accepted as a form of leadership development. So I then decided that I wanted to incorporate it into my learning and development business, and I'd started my NLP journey, so I could see lots of parallels between that form of horse whispering and NLP. So I started kind of training in it and practicing it. I invited Lane and his wife Margie over for a week and got some of my clients together, and we ran, I think, 3 programs in the week, and then a Saturday with my learning training network group, and kind of just pulled a program together. And then they went back off to Canada, and I'm like, right, okay, now I've got a business. What am I going to do with it? And yeah, there was a lot of closed doors. There was a lot of things that I hadn't got, I didn't know how to do. And eventually, I have my Horses for Courses business. I've trademarked the name, which was a miracle. I couldn't believe nobody trademarked the name. So I've had that now, I think, 22 years, something like that.
Wow. I mean, your reputation goes before you now, so you don't even need to work at it. But that must have been hard back then. And I want to touch on, so I, as you well know, during this podcast, I try and understand the neurological levels of change. So what's the difference to someone actually hitting their target, which, you inspired me to do. So you know this better than anyone. But what were the kind of beliefs that you had to have at that time?
Well, it's really interesting because part of the setting up of the business, I had an NLP coach, and we must have spent 6 months walking up and down the neurological levels going, I haven't got that bit. Okay, what do I need to do to get that bit? I haven't got that bit. What do I need to do to get that bit? What do I need to do to get that bit? So that was a really interesting journey for me. So I think I had a real sense of purpose. So I knew what I wanted to do and what I thought it would do for me, what I thought it would do for the horses, and what potential I thought it would have for the client. So I was really clear on my mission, on what I wanted it to be, and I'm very passionate about raising awareness around how being empathetic with horses, animals, people actually was a congruent way of leading, and that it didn't need to be about dominance and submission. It could be about collaboration and mutuality and respect and win-win. And so I was really clear about that. I had a massive issue with the identity of being a horse whisperer.
I was going to ask you that, yeah.
First, no, I couldn't say the words. I could not say I am a horse whisperer. And I still struggle with it, because for me, horse whispering was tied up with like showmanship. So it was the likes of Monty Roberts or Pirelli hiring out a big stadium, bringing horses in, fixing them. And of course they don't, because it's about the horse's relationship with the owner. And it was all very, aren't I aren't I great? The
Mhm.
purpose, and I understand their purpose behind what they were doing, was to improve animal welfare, to improve the relationships. But for me, there just seemed to be too much ego in it. And so I really struggled with that word, horse whisperer. I am a horse whisperer. I can say I am a horsewoman.
Yeah.
I can say I do natural horsemanship. I can say I do equine facilitated learning. And they're all kind of behavioural statements, not identity statements. So I do think I do hold myself as a horsewoman now.
Mhm.
And I'm very passionate about the dynamic and the relationship with the horse, and being able to put myself into the horse's shoes and consider how it is from their world and what would actually make them really happy. Which is a long way of answering your what beliefs did I hold, because I had so many limiting beliefs that needed to be turned to enabling beliefs before I could actually do it.
Yeah.
Um, so did I have enough skill? Who was I? Could I step into something that was like unfamiliar and not really known? So I was like a real early adopter, which gave me lots of advantages, because the minute that I think it was Carlsberg who were my first client, or first big client, and they had some press in one of the big coaching journals. And then once they'd done it, it was like, oh, if Carlsberg do it,
Yeah.
then, we'll do it, and then we'll do it, and then we'll do it. So it was quite a few doors being closed. So like CEOs often would get the concept. HR directors often would go, oh, I can see how we can translate that interaction into an interaction with a human to human. The finance directors would go, you're going to do what with what? Literally. I'm like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of, and I didn't have the right skills. I didn't have the right environment.
Mhm.
So there was a whole host on the neurological levels of things that weren't in place.
Yeah, I think from my perspective as well, and having done some of that work with you with the horses, I mean, I remember saying to you, I so want to get in there, but I was terrified of
Yeah.
the size of the horse and everything else. And I know you literally held on to me and guided me around.
I'll stay next to
Comfort zone, yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did you have any of that? Because you'd already obviously been around horses a lot, but to feel that connection, I mean, I wouldn't consider myself, kind
No.
of familiar with horses, but there was a point where I got that connection, that rapport with the horse, and
Yeah.
it was just amazing. So
Yeah, I remember the first time that I actually felt that connection, and it was such a like heart connection, and I literally had tears streaming down my eyes. It just felt so magical and awe-inspiring. And I think for people to get that embodied sense of what is it like to be really connected to another being,
yeah,
and how do we experience that in our body, not just in our head? It's not an intellectual academic, rapport isn't a intellectual academic topic. It's how can my heart connect with your heart, and how do we find a way of kind of partnering through whatever the situation is that we're kind of find ourselves in. So yeah, I certainly was never scared, because I've been around horses since I was 2, and I've trained with them and those sorts of things. And I know how to read the body language. What I got certainly from Lane and the subsequent training that I did was the subtleties of reading the body language, so that it's become easier and easier over the years to get a sense of how the horse is, and whether something's working for them or whether it's not working for them. And I think for me, I was really, I took a long time to find a way of crafting my programs so that they worked for the horses and that the horses had a good time. I did go off and go on another couple of programs after I'd set up and got going. And for me, I had a bit of a value conflict. I didn't feel like it worked for the horses. So I really have kind of wound my own path and gone, no, that bit's not for me. Yeah, I'll do that. Like, this is kind of where I'm going. So I found it really clear, because I know so well what my values are around animal welfare, and I believe really strongly if we domesticate an animal, then we take it out of its natural environment, we have a responsibility to make its life the best that it can be. And so everything about the way that I keep my horses and I work with my horses is in their best interest, as far as I can and as far as I know right now. And tomorrow I might learn something new, and then I'll add that to my repertoire. The way we kept our ponies when we were children, we didn't have acupuncturists and massages, and they didn't have physio, and they, the saddle fitter, you learned how to fit your saddle at Pony Club camp. Now I have a saddle fitter every 6 weeks. The level of technology and things that we've learned is just gone from strength to strength. So
and I think it's connecting that. I don't know, that there's nothing else that's quite like it, because we live in a world of AI. So AI takes over everything. We're always looking for shortcuts, and actually when you've got that that raw connection with the animal, like you say, I actually found it really emotional, because that's what we're missing, I feel, in today's world.
Well, if you look at the statistics of, like, I think somebody said to me the other day, it was something like one in 8 young adults were reporting mental health issues. So what on earth are we doing in a society where we're not connecting? Because even when I talk to my lovely, gorgeous nieces and they say, oh, I was chatting to, and I double check it. I go, oh, you went for a coffee? Oh, no. Oh, you spoke on the phone? No. Oh, you were WhatsApping or texting. And that distance, that separation, and the opportunity for misunderstanding and miscommunication is just so rife. And then we've got the world of social media where everyone's comparing themselves with everybody else. And actually, I don't know how that makes anyone happy. So having that real, humans are gregarious animals. They live, we like to connect. We need that social contact in the same way as the horses. Their survival depends on living in a herd. Actually, just getting that level of connection for a short period of time, like, really boosts our whole sense of well-being.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly it, because I remember you saying about how one of our basic human needs is to be part of something, to be connected, and I do feel that is something that we're tragically missing.
So sad.
Tell me as well about so was there anything that kind of came up for you when you were starting your business that you thought, actually, that there's something I didn't realize I didn't know, and you've had to
loads of things I didn't know. I still don't know anything.
I mean, as a coach, you're forever learning, and you're you're just continually doing courses, and I think I've got that bug now, because it's like, wow, what's next?
Yeah, what can I do next? What shall I learn about next? Yeah, I'm going to go and do this. Yeah,
exactly. But was there something that really kind of floored you, and you thought, oh, I'm not sure where to go with this? Or
I think for me, because I've always really valued coaching, I don't tend to get completely floored by things, because one, I trust that I've got resources and support networks that there will be a solution to whatever the problem is. So I'm more about, well, where do I want to go and how do I need to get there? And I know that it's never it's never a dotted, straight line. It's normally a ziggy-zaggy one. And so for me, it's that flexibility. So if you come up against an obstacle or a barrier, it's, okay, so what we're going to do about it? Yeah, can we get around it? Can we go sideways? Do we need to get a ladder, build a bridge? What is it that we need to do in order to circumvent that to get where I want to go? So I think for me, it's about having if I've got a compelling enough goal, like if it's worth the price that it's going to cost to achieve it, then I'll just keep going until I come up with a solution. So yeah, I don't particularly get flawed. I've had my own business now 24 years, 25 years next year, and there's been times when like COVID wiped it out. It's like, oh, okay, no plans. I know what I'll do. I'll write a book. Then so there's like, I always think like out of adversity there can always be something positive. So I am optimistic by nature, and I think certainly with like the NLP that I've been doing, I just believe that there's a solution to every problem. So something will happen, and if something happens and it appears to be terrible, and that does happen, things have happened in my life, things have happened in lots of my friends' lives. Actually, there's normally something that you can find that the good will come out of it eventually, or you can use it to good effect. So I think I move towards what it is that I want to achieve.
Yeah, that's something I've definitely learned. I remember you saying, because of the nature of what I do or have done in HR, it's focusing on risks and problems, not having that, changing some of that. I'm conscious some of the listeners won't understand necessarily what neurological levels of change are.
Mm-hmm.
So would you be able to just in a summary explain how you used that at the beginning of your journey, and how we can't solve a problem at the level that we think it's at?
Yeah, for sure. So it's basically a series of different ways. It's called logical levels because they're related to each other. So one will depend on the other. So as it kind of runs up, actually, I think Robert Dilts originally had it in a circle. I was taught it in a straight line because I think that's kind of an easier way of understanding it. But it's like, what if you want to do something? What's the environment? What environment do you need in order to do that? So it might be anything from your skin out. What then are the behaviors? What are the things that you're going to do repeatedly or consistently or really well that are going to help you achieve it? What skills and capabilities do you need and you want to draw on? What do you need to believe about yourself, the situation, the person? And then what's your sense of identity? So I am a horsewoman, not a horse whisperer. Actually, it's a semantic and actually massively different because words mean different things to different people.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the purpose? What's it do for you? What's it do for others? So when I first was exploring with my coach, setting up the business, I don't think I even had any horses. So it was like, okay, so I need to borrow some horses. Then I need to have an area that I can do them, and then somewhere that the clients can be. And what if it rains? And have we got a roof? And what am I going to feed them? And all of those sorts of things. And then it was like, well, what are the behaviors? What actually are we going to teach? What are the learning outcomes? What people don't come to me because they want to learn to interact and engage with their horse. It's what's relevant to interactions and engagements with colleagues, teams, personal dynamics, relationships. And then what skills have I got? And then I found that I hadn't got a load of them, so I needed to do some more training. What did I believe about myself And it was like, oh no, I can't do this. Maybe I can only do it in Canada. And then I remember I came back from the training. I was like, yeah, I've nailed it. I've got the skill to do this. And I said to my friend, I said, oh, let me show you what I can do now. And I worked with a horse and it just ran off. I'm like, okay, so I can only do it with Canadian horses. Apparently it doesn't work on the ones in the UK. It's just like, so you just kind of keep going round and round and round, like just tweaking things until it starts to fall into place to be something. And then for me, it's about having alignment. So when they all support each other, that's when you get a flow of purpose, or you get a flow of creativity or passion, and that then takes on almost like a life of its own, because it's really aligned, it's really congruent. You're not fighting against something, and you're not being something that you're not, and it isn't supported by the values that you hold and the beliefs that you hold. So
yeah, thank you for that. I think, it is so useful, because I hear a lot of people, I mean, I've done this as well, I've said to you, I don't feel like I'm really qualified to do this, I don't think I've got the skills, maybe I need another course, or I need to do another thing.
Yeah.
Actually, it comes down to that belief of whether you believe you can or you can't.
Yeah.
You're right, in some circumstances.
Absolutely. And I think sometimes people are kind of what I would call almost overconfident. They like read a book and off they go. They're like, hey, I'm going to go and do it. And you're like, oh, you're going to read a book and fly an aeroplane? Yeah, okay. Maybe there's some other things you might want to do. Like take a flying lesson or something. Yeah. And actually, I really admire that. And I think we can get hooked into I do need to do some more training. I can't. And I think it's that comfort zone, stretch zone, panic zone piece, isn't it? And being honest with oneself in terms of what one's skill and capacity is at that point in time, and actually just moving it forward. And for me, if we've got a really compelling goal, like something that you really, really want to, which often starts with what I don't want, I don't want that. But once we've got a direction of travel, then it can be, it's a continuous loop, isn't it? It's a feedback loop. Like, am I getting closer? Am I getting further away? Am I getting closer? Am I getting further away?
Yeah. So tell me, Lisa, is there one thing that, some really bad advice you've received, or something that you just, really makes you cringe that you've heard over the years?
I think the thing that creates the most amount of charge in me, like sort of I'll come out fighting against it, is when people you can go, which people? When I have heard certain people give their opinion as if it's like a fact or a universal truth. And so when somebody says to me, it's like this, and they're really like dogmatic about it, and I kind of go, no. And I can feel like I have a visceral like response to it. I'm like, yeah, well, that's your opinion. It's like, that's your experience. That's true for you. It's not true for me. So when someone does that to me, like wants to have me, like put me in a box that goes, you're like this, I'm like, I don't think so. So I will definitely kick against that for sure.
Yeah. And it's interesting how many people do that. I try to be conscious of it, because I remember you talking about this, but we all have that tendency to say, I mean, that's another thing. So I say on this podcast, I've realized I say thousands of times. But how?
How do you know? You don't know, because you haven't said yet. And it is, it is crazy, because of course we're talking from our experience. I think the piece, and linking back to the horses piece, is we can talk from our experience, and actually if we go and put ourselves in someone else's shoes and view the world from their perspective and with that from their experience, actually it looks very different.
Yeah.
And so that assumption that our little map or model of the world is the only one is not, I just don't think it's valid. I think everybody's been brought up differently. They've had different experiences. They've met different people. They filter information differently. We're all totally unique. And so, of course, our experience is going to be different than somebody else's. And that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Amazing. Well, there's so many gems in there. And I just want to finalize by saying, if there's someone listening now that's feeling stuck, what advice would you give them to get unstuck?
Get themselves a really good coach. I would say get really clear about what they want and why they want it. And if they can do that, then it becomes a compelling goal, and that can create momentum and impetus to move towards, and a whole load of other things that a coach potentially would help and support them to do.
Yeah. Amazing. So yeah, thank you once again. How can people reach out to you if someone's interested in doing an NLP course, or because you train and you have so many different courses, so how can what's the best way to then contact you?
Probably just through my website, lisabrice.co.uk. That's easiest. It's got contact details and programs and things on it, so yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. And I will put those in the show notes as well. So yeah, thank you once again, Lisa. It's been amazing talking to you.
Brilliant. Lovely to talk to you too, Laura.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to rate the show or leave a comment. It really helps us reach more people. And don't forget to share it with anyone else who could use a little motivation today. Have a fantastic day and make sure you hit your targets.